It is a nationwide manhunt, and actually in less than 24 hours, that's how quickly things turned around. 2 BC teens went from missing persons to being wanted as suspected killers. I can tell you, police are carrying out that nationwide manhunt for this pair. They were last seen in a remote northern Manitoba town.
Kam and Bryer are no longer considered missing. The RCMP are now considering Kam McLeod and Bryer Schmegelsky as suspects in the Deese Lake suspicious death and the double homicide of Lucas Fowler and Chynna Deese.
You're looking right here at the latest image of 19-year-old Kam McLeod and 18-year-old Bryer Schmegelsky. It comes from an RCMP news release. These two are suspects in a murder case that has put communities across Western Canada on edge. These two people, Australian Lucas Fowler and American Chynna Deese, were found shot dead beside the highway on July 15th, not far from Liard Hot Springs, which is in northern BC. And then 4 days later, a truck belonging to the wanted men was found burning about 500 kilometers away near Deese Lake, BC. And you just saw a recreation, a picture of that man there. There was a body of an unidentified man that was found next to the highway, just about 2 kilometers away from that burned out vehicle. So let's get more information because we've got our news teams working on this. Take you first to Manitoba on the most recent sighting and the search for the suspects. We've got CBC's Angela Johnston right there in Winnipeg. What are you hearing, Angela?
Well, we've spoken to the mayor of Gilliam, and he says that this really is a huge unknown for the community. People are really wondering, are the suspects here? Are they not? And it's really put people on edge. Now, remember, this is a very remote community. There's only about 1,100 or 1,200 people up in the community of Gilliam, and it's pretty rugged terrain. So one person we spoke to had mentioned that, usually she walks into work, she'll leave her doors open during the day to get fresh air. But today she decided to get a ride into work. She's keeping all those doors closed just to make sure that she stays safe. Now, we do know that there is an increased RCMP presence in the area. We've heard that there's a checkpoint going into the community. And RCMP just told us that their investigators are working very diligently on this case. But obviously people are feeling a bit nervous. We did speak, as I mentioned, to the mayor of Gilliam, and here is some of the advice that he had for people that might be feeling a bit anxious.
Stay safe, stay indoors. If you're traveling alone, I would recommend it. It is an unknown, right? So if they are in the community, I think it's safest for everybody to just travel in groups and keep your eyes open for any suspicious individuals.
Now, there is also this issue of a burned out car that was spotted in the area. The mayor told us that there was a report of this burned out car that came in Monday evening about 70 kilometers from the community. And this was something that was echoed by a chief in the area as well. The chief of Fox Lake Cree Nation put out a statement yesterday. He said, a vehicle was burned and discarded near our reserve of bird today. We cannot confirm this was directly connected to the individuals wanted by RCMP. An all-night patrol for the community has been prepared as a caution. I would like to ask all community members to report anything of concern directly to RCMP. Now, it is important to note that both the mayor and the chief have said that this car has not been directly linked to the suspects. But obviously, this is something that people in the area are keeping top of mind.
All right, thanks for the update, Angela. We'll talk again. CBC's Angela Johnston, she is in Winnipeg. Now, we talked about that manhunt. It is across the country, and we pinpointed where those two men were last seen. We've got Megan Roberts following all of the latest developments on this story and this manhunt. She's right here in studio. Are we getting a clearer picture of their movements, perhaps across the country, perhaps still just in Manitoba?
So we've got an idea of the points that they were seen, kind of how they traveled. We don't know the route that they traveled. We don't know the exact highways, how they got to where they were going, where they were last spotted. But we can start to paint a picture of exactly where they were. So let's take a look at a map, and I'll go through their movements, starting with Liard Hot Springs. That photo you're seeing is of Lucas Fowler, 23 years old, the Australian, American Chynna Deese, 24. near Liard Hot Springs is where their bodies were found shot on July 15th. Next to Deese Lake, that's where McLeod and Schmegelsky were last seen before they were believed to be missing people. You can see their truck there. Their truck was found burnt out, and that sketch of that other man who was also found deceased, he's still unidentified. Meadow Lake in Saskatchewan, they were definitively spotted there. RCMP say there was a confirmed sighting in northern Saskatchewan. And then finally we go to Gilliam, where it's that last potential sighting we were just talking about in Manitoba, that community, one road in, one road out. So you can see their movements across the country there. We don't know the exact routes they were taking. And when you start to get to some of those northern communities, there's not a lot of roads. There's not a lot of options. So certainly we know the manhunt is there now. These are the two latest photos we have of Kam McLeod, Bryer Schmegelsky, and certainly there's a massive effort right now to find them. One thing police are saying definitely is to keep an eye out, but do not approach them. They are considered dangerous. Don't talk to them. Don't take any action. They say simply just call police, call RCMP, call 911 if you see them. And we heard the reflection of that anxiety in the community from Angela there, that people are worried about this right now because that last sighting in Manitoba was a maybe sighting, according to RCMP. It wasn't a confirmed sighting. So the question really is, where are they? How are they even traveling? We don't know.
And we were asking the question of where are they yesterday in reference to them being missing as two teens who were heading up for a job in Whitehorse and they went missing. Today we are asking where are they, and the title has changed to Suspected Killers. It's that quick of a transition.
Absolutely, to suspects. And then in those three deaths, we know that the two tourists were ruled as homicides. They were shot dead. We know the other man is just a suspicious death right now. He's a man in his 50s or 60s. We don't know his identity even. We just have that sketch. And this is the van where the bodies of the two tourists were found. So a lot of unanswered questions. RCMP, we heard from them actually just now from Manitoba RCMP saying that, of course, they're still investigating, that they don't have any new information at this point, but that they are trying to obviously find these two suspects. Again, as you mentioned, going from missing to suspects in the blink of an eye. It's an incredibly complicated case.
Thanks for that, Megan. We will talk again. I know our colleague Angela Johnston had mentioned that she had spoken to the mayor of Gilliam in Manitoba, and that's where we're going right now because we've got him on the line, and there is an impact to this manhunt. There is, I suppose, a fear, as Angela had mentioned, in the town of Gilliam. The mayor is Dwayne Foreman. He's on the line right now. Mayor Foreman, you've probably had one heck of a night. Describe for me what you've been going through since it changed and RCMP made the link from missing to possible murder suspects. How has your life changed?
Your life has definitely stepped up in the community. A lot of phone calls, a lot of reporters. It's non-stop, and it's worldwide. I'm getting phone calls from everywhere in regards to this. And unfortunately, I don't have any information really to give them other than they're suspected to be in the area. Nothing's confirmed.
But you do have information on your community. What's the talk? What's the buzz there?
Oh, well, there is speculation and fear within the community, and that's understandable because we're all dealing with an unknown, whether they are or are not in the area. So it's understandable that there's fear, and we got to make sure we keep our eyes out on the chance that they are in the area.
You know, we've just shown our viewers a map of where Gilliam is because perhaps, you know, I had never heard about Gilliam before, but now you're part of my vernacular. You're on the Nelson River, northern Manitoba, quite far up, so, you know, you're remote. Let me ask you, how do you get in and out of Gilliam? Is there a train that you can get out with there? What do people do?
Yeah, we can get out by train. That is an option. You can also fly out of the community. We have an airport. But basically, by road, you only have one way in and one way out, and that's Provincial Road 280. And that's 300 kilometers of gravel between the city of Thompson and our community.
What does Road 280 look like? Are there RCMP blockades? Can you describe for me how 280 has changed?
Once again, I haven't been to site. All I can do is go off information that I've been forwarded, as far as there is a police presence at the junction of PR 280, and they are searching all vehicles going in and out of that road. They also increased their police presence within the community of Gilliam and the Fox Lake community as well.
Tell me about Fox Lake. Where is that and what's happening there?
Fox Lake is a reserve approximately 60 kilometers north of Gilliam. It's on PR 290. It's where a junction of 280 and 290 split. And 290 actually heads north. So Fox Lake is a northern community that is actually closer to, I guess, the burned vehicle that has not been confirmed, whether it's anything to do with the suspects, but that community is the closer community for sure.
And Mayor, you talk about waiting for confirmation. We will certainly be carrying live any information that comes from RCMP or police who are on this investigation, and our viewers here on CBC News Network will get it. But right now, with you on the line, someone who is in a community that, is in this story right now, whether you want it to be or not, describe for me what the mood is like there in Gilliam.
In some cases, the mood hasn't changed. In other cases, people are very afraid and locking themselves up. And but in all cases, I think you just got to be aware at all times. Keep your eyes open, and if you see anyone, report. Like fear is going to creep up on anybody, really. So it's an unknown that we got to push ourselves through right now.
I want to thank you for your time, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, Mayor Foreman. You take care.
You too. Thank you very much.
Dwayne Foreman is the mayor of Gilliam, Manitoba. As I mentioned, that is on the Nelson River in northern Manitoba. Let's stick with this story, because I think one of the things that fascinates Canadians across this country is not only that, these teens went from being missing to murder suspects, but also that there is this manhunt underway, not really familiar to us as Canadians. While they were last believed to be in Manitoba, their whereabouts right now are unknown, as we heard from the mayor. That leaves the RCMP with this manhunt going underway. How does the public play in and help with that? They have said if you see them, do not approach them. But let's talk about what that manhunt entails. Our chase team has reached former RCMP officer Kim Watt-Senner. She's also a city councillor. She is in Fraser Lake, BC. Let me ask you, Kim, we use the word manhunt, and perhaps people hear it on crime shows, etc. What does manhunt actually mean in Canada when it comes to across this country?
Well, it means that every police force in Canada will be tracking the suspects, and it means that it doesn't matter whether it's a county, municipal, city police forces, or provincial. They will all be having relative information in relative time, and it also means that it'll be discussed at every briefing that every police officer walks on the floor, so that they have the latest information.
So does every police officer who is part of this investigation now have a picture of these two missing teens?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. They will have a whole host of information as to the latest sightings and whereabouts, as well as updated information as to, possibly what they look like and or what they're driving.
When you talk about driving, how do RCMP or police in particular areas blockade roads if they can? When I was speaking with the mayor of Gilliam, Mayor Foreman, he said, you know what, there's one road in, and that is Road 280. You can take a train out of to Churchill, so you can get out of there that way. You probably don't need ID to buy that. But certainly if you're in a car or if you've got some other vehicle, how does the RCMP make sure those vehicles don't get through?
Well, I think that, I mean, as you see on, crime TV shows, they've got spike belts, which, I mean, they do work and we have it for a purpose. But even things like bringing in helicopters, people can go on foot. They can, get a hold of motor vehicles like motorcycles or even a bicycle. I mean, anything. These suspects can head off into the bush at a moment's notice if push comes to shove.
If you go into the bush, are there dogs involved? I mean, is there a scent tracking portion of this investigation?
Oh, absolutely. The RCMP will be pulling out all resources. There will be no stops on this. And they will put absolutely every resource they have into finding these two suspects, to make Canada safe again.
What about helicopters? What about thermal imaging? Again, maybe I watch too much, when it comes to crime shows, but you think about at night and they've got the goggles on or whatever, and they're able to track somebody through night vision goggles or thermal heat.
And it's true. And the RCMP has all of those resources and then some. And like I said, Sue, Hannah, they will pull out all the stops. They will be going at this 110%, 24 hours a day until these suspects are located.
Kim, those discussions that happen in the morning meetings or whatever time the officers get together, are they perhaps also discussing what if they split up? How does that change the manhunt?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, what's happened is these suspects are young. Whether they planned it or whether, it just occurred, we don't know at this point. And I think it's very important to realize that they're supporting each other. They're running scared. They don't know what's going to happen. As far as we know, these kids have not been in the criminal light to date. And so, what happens to suspects when they get scared can have negative connotations, and it can have negative outcomes. And, at this point, they're really in the driver's seat as to how this ends. And that's that's a hard thing. And we don't want the general public to, unfortunately be part of that ending.
Could they have changed their appearance as well? Maybe they watch crime shows as well. I mean, they are 6'4". They are two white teenagers. They're pretty lanky. They would stand out, in a small community, particularly where people might know each other or know their neighbors. Is that also a possibility?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, gentlemen, especially with, facial hair, removing facial hair, they have longer, head hair, and, they can crop it off or go bald. They can grow a mustache. They can take one away. And I mean, so they can really alter their appearance quite quickly. And I think that one of the keys is to pay attention to the facial structure that you see on TV and the eyes. The eyes are very integral. We can't change our eyes. What is the shape of the eyebrows? The shape of the eyes themselves? How does the nose connect, and how does that, complete the face? And that is really important to pay attention, as opposed to what the hair looks like or whether they have facial hair or no facial hair.
One final question for you. It has to do with that vehicle that was ditched, and still waiting for confirmation as to whether that vehicle belonged to the teens. It does match the description of their vehicle. What would investigators be pinpointing and looking for in that vehicle that was burned and ditched?
Well, of course, it depends on the extent of the fire itself, and as to whether there would be any evidence. But I can tell you that if they do find evidence in that vehicle, it'll be what's called holdback evidence, and it'll be evidence that only the police will know, and that's very important for a charge and a conviction. So, but I can tell you that the ident section will be going through that vehicle with a fine-tooth comb to try and determine any type of DNA or fibers or anything that can link them to the suspects themselves.
Kim, you're fascinating. And I'm just, one final thing that I just thought of, and that is public involvement. You've said pay attention to the eyes. You can't change that, the shape of the eyebrows, etc. How often is the public input and tips, how important is that in what is now a nationwide manhunt?
Well, it's absolutely number one, and it's so very pivotal in trying to capture these suspects. It's very important that like you said, that if the general public sees these suspects, do not approach them. Do not try and be a Canadian hero. Let the police do that. That's what we're tasked to do. It's what we're paid to do, and it's what we're trained to do. And I think that that's really important. You have to look at it like there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that live in Canada, and as a police force, we have maybe 25,000 across Canada, the east to west, and so many eyes trying to find these suspects, as opposed to just police eyes, are just really important. And if I could just say one thing, that the families on both sides are really affected by this. I mean, obviously the parents of the suspects are devastated, and this is something that they didn't realize that their adult children could be a part of, and also the families that have had their children murdered is equally devastating. And each sets of parents want these kids to be found whole. We don't want to end up in a situation where they could be themselves killed, or death by cop is what they say, or for them to commit suicide. We want to understand the psychology and the why. Everybody wants to know why. And for these suspects, if you're watching this, turn yourself in. Save some families more grief, and come out with your hands up and let us take you into custody. And yes, you're going to have to atone for what you've done, but at the same time, let's not have any more carnage in the process.
When you say what you've done, I just want to underline they are just suspects at this point,
Yes.
and there have been no charges laid. But Kim, I want to thank you for your time and letting us into your head when it comes to these manhunts and the investigations. That is Kim Watt-Senner.
You bet.
She is a retired RCMP officer, and our chase team reached her in Fraser Lake, BC.